You hear the stories about how dangerous Ouija boards are, but hey, it's just a game. Mary waited until midnight to begin our little game, and the four of us, Sarah, Jessie, me, and Mary, started by asking all kinds of silly questions. It was a strange-looking board covered with letters and symbols. There was a plastic pointer that was supposed to move across the board at the behest of the spirits. The instructions called it a planchette. Around 1:30 in the morning, the planchette suddenly froze in Mary's hand. It wouldn't move, no matter how much we pushed it and pulled. Mary turned her frightened blue eyes towards me. "I'm not doing it," she said, lifting her hands. I grabbed the planchette myself and tried to push it around, but it was fixed to the board. Suddenly, a kind of electric shock buzzed through my fingers. I gasped and tried to pull my fingers from the planchette, but they were stuck. Mary and Jessie both tried to pull my fingers away. Nothing helped. The other girl stared with wide, round eyes as the planchette came alive under my fingers, which were fixed to its surface and began to move. "Help," the words spelled out under my hand. "Help me. Help me." The planchette kept moving back and forth between the H, E, L, P continuously until Sarah cried out, "Who are you?" "Amber," the board spelled. "My name is Amber. I am 8 years old." "What's wrong?" Mary asked. Her face was so wide, all the freckles stood out like dark and age spots. "Water. Danger. Help. Scared." The words spelled out as fast as my hand could move. "Call 911, Mary cried suddenly. "Quick, Amber's in danger." By this time, Sarah was gasping into the phone. Then she hung up the phone. "They wouldn't listen to me," she told us, almost in tears. At that instant, my hand was suddenly free from the planchette. "She's gone," I gasped. "See if you can contact her again," Mary said urgently. "We need to know if she's okay." I picked up the plastic planchette again. "Amber, are you there?" I asked softly, afraid of what might happen. After a long pause, it moved slowly across the board and spelled out the words, "Too late." And after another long pause, "Water, flood, drowned, Mobile, Alabama." The planchette stopped. I knew that Amber was gone. None of us got much sleep that night. In the morning, we rushed through breakfast and then looked up the Alabama news on the internet. None of us were surprised to read that there had been flash floods the night before. I read the names of those who had died in the flood. One of the victims was an 8-year-old girl named Amber. Peggy and her boyfriend Tommy were driving down a lonely stretch of a highway at dusk when a thunderstorm came crashing down on them. Tommy slowed the car and they crept their way past a formidable abandoned house. Plastered all over the fences and trees were signs saying "No trespassing." A mile past the house, the car hydroplaned. Peggy screamed as the car slid off the road, plunging down into a gully. The car slammed into a large boulder, throwing Peggy violently into the door before it came to rest under a tree. Her head banged against the window, and a stabbing pain shot through her shoulder and arm. Tommy turned to her. "Are you alright? You're bleeding." "Arm, shoulder, feel bad," Peggy managed to gasp. Tommy glanced cautiously at her right arm. "I think your arm is broken," he said. He tore a strip off his shirt and pressed it to the cut on her forehead. "I'm going to call for help," he said, when it became obvious that the bleeding was not going to stop right away. But neither of them had their cell phones. "That house we just passed will have a phone I can use," Tommy said. Peggy's eyes popped wide open at this statement. Despite her pain, she remembered the creepy abandoned house. "Stay here. A car will come," she managed to say. "I can't stay, Peggy," Tommy said. "It could take hours for another car to come, and you're losing too much blood." He tore another strip of his shirt and placed it gently on the cut on her forehead. Then he went out and retrieved a couple of blankets from the trunk to cover her with. "I'll be back soon as I can," he said. He raced out into the storm, shutting the dented car door behind him. Peggy drifted in kind of a daze. Something at the back of her mind was making her so uneasy. She slid down onto the floor and put her head on the seat, completely covering herself with the blankets, head to toe. Feeling safer, she allowed the weariness caused by the wounds to take over and fell asleep. Peggy wasn't sure what woke her. Had a beam of light shone briefly through the blanket? Did she hear someone curse outside? She strained eyes and ears, but heard nothing save by the soft thudding of the rain, and no light shone through the blanket now. If Tommy had arrived with the rescue squad, there surely would be noise and light and many voices, but she heard nothing save the swish of the rain and an occasional thumping noise which she put down to the rubbing of the branches of the tree in the wind. The sound should have been comforting, but it was not. Goosebumps crawled across her arms, even the broken one, and she almost ceased breathing for some time, as some deep part of her inner mind instructed her to freeze and not make a sound. She did not know how long fear kept her immobile, but suddenly the raw terror ceased, replaced by cold shivers of apprehension and a sick oil in her stomach that had nothing to do with her injuries. Something terrible had happened, she thought, fear adding yet more tiredness to her already wounded body. Then she scolded herself for a second. It was just her sore head making her imagine things. Somewhat comforted by this thought, she dozed again, only vaguely aware of a new sound that had not been there before. A soft thud sound, as if something gently tapping the roof. Thud, thud. Pattering of the rain. Thud, thud. Silence. Sometimes she would almost waken and listen to it puzzled. Thud, thud. Patter of rain. Thud, thud. Had a branch dislodged from the tree? Peggy wasn't sure how long she'd been unconscious when she was awakened by a bright light blazing through the window. The sound of male voices exclaiming in horror. A door was wrenched open and someone crawled inside. She lifted her head and looked up at a young state policeman. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked, and then turned over his shoulder to call for help. Peggy told the officers her story and begged them to look for Tommy. They definitely avoided answering her and instead called the paramedics. As the paramedics carried her carefully up the slope of the incline, Peggy looked back at the car and saw a horrible figure hanging from the branch of the tree. For a moment, her brain couldn't decipher what she was seeing. The lights of the car parked on the side of the road were too bright for her to see. But then she was able to see and hear a thud-thud sound as the foot of the figure scraped the top of the totaled car, and she started screaming over and over in horror. One of the police officers hastened to block her view, and a paramedic fumbled for some Valium to give her as her mind finally registered what she had seen. Tommy's mangled dead body was hanging from the tree just above the car, and nailed to the center of his chest was a no trespassing sign.